I teach a lot of strategy around creative little no money down financing strategies. And, I think that people have a mindset that can't be done. And I've bought 4 unit to 400 unit apartment complexes and everything in between using creative financing structures.
You're listening to the Real Returns podcast, where we learn how real investments can make a real impact. Join your hosts, Andrew and Dan, as they share stories and interview business leaders on how real estate and other forms of investment can create meaningful change for individuals and communities around the world.
Welcome back to the Real Returns podcast, where we talk about the impact that we're having in the world through our companies, through our investments, and through everything else that we're doing. I'm your host, Andrew Reichert. I am joined with my co-host, Dan Croce. Dan, what's going on over there today?
Tell you what, man, I'm doing pretty well. I got to be honest, though. That we saw snowflakes a couple of days ago, and it's November here in Pittsburgh. I asked Alexa to give me some good news about the weather forecast, and she just laughed at me. And you might think that I'm kidding about that, but that's no joke, Andrew.
Snow joke.
They just get worse.
What you did there.
And
I
worse
see what you did.
and worse.
You weren't kidding when
All
you
right.
said a dad joke.
I told you it would be a bad dad joke. This one was right on point today.
Oh my God.
Hey, today we are excited to have Mike Morawski on hand with us. And luckily for him, he is in Huntington Beach, California. Mike is a real estate investment veteran and a coach, a 30-year vet of the industry. He's been an entrepreneur, and these days he specializes in coaching people in their journeys into investment real estate. So Mike, we are thrilled to have you. Why don't you say hello?
Thanks for having me. I've been looking forward to this and getting on with you guys. So I appreciate the opportunity for sure. Hopefully we can spread some warm cheer for the listeners. So
we would appreciate that very much. Hey, so Mike, we'll hit it from the start. So I understand you are all about impact in terms of helping other people get into the real estate business. Tell us just a little bit about what you do and how'd you end up doing that?
Yeah, so I've been in the real estate space for 30 years. Prior to that, I had a general contracting business and absolutely love what I do. And I love giving back. And by giving back, I love to teach, people how to get in the space, how to, underwrite deals and raise capital, or if you want to just be a passive investor, what makes sense and how to vet your deal and get into a good, stable real estate deal. I do that through a couple of coaching platforms. I'm an author. I have 3 different books out. My third one just came out a few months ago and was an Amazon bestseller called Multifamily Investment Secrets. And along with that, I'm an owner operator, and we own, I've owned over 8,000 multifamily units and operated those.
Wow, amazing. So tell us a little bit about your journey from being a doer to transitioning to thinking about how you can impact others by helping them get into the industry. How long were you just kind of doing the thing yourself versus wanting to help other people?
Yeah, I think I've always been helping other people. When you really look at what you do in the multifamily space or the real estate space, even when I was selling residential real estate, you're helping other people, right? You're helping them sell that home they live in, find that dream home that they're looking for. And you really are giving back in a way. The same thing in multifamily, we bring investors and I always tell people in kind of a short, elevator pitch is, hey, I bring multifamily deals to the market and we partner with private investors and we share in the profits. And, you're really helping people create financial freedom by doing that and helping them, create cash flow, build long-term wealth, and save on their taxes or plan for their future through their taxes.
Yeah.
Mike, I love that. Can you talk through like an example of that? Like, do you have a particular project or particular story of a, person or impact that you've had in that angle?
Yeah. So I'm going to tell a story that kind of incorporates 2 or 3 different ways of helping people. So we bought a deal about a year ago, and the seller was in distress. So he had a 65 unit apartment deal that he was 60% occupied. He had 26 units that were uninhabitable. The buildings needed a roof, needed a parking lot, and a host of other physical improvements. And the seller had no more cash, and he was going to lose the deal. So we stepped in and we creatively structured a deal where we would bring an injection of capital into it for rehab, renovation, and to turn the operations. So, short story, we went in, we did a bunch of capital improvements. We bought the deal creatively, where actually the seller's holding $1 million second on the property at no interest and no payments for 10 years, and gets a little piece of the backside or the upside when we do sell the project. But, a year and a half later, we're at 92% occupied. All those units are up and running. We put a roof on a building, a parking lot, great operational and improvements, as well as, physical improvements. So we helped the seller out of a bad spot. We have a number of investors that invested with us and trusted in us that are starting to turn a profit and will realize a large gain. Plus, they're getting the tax advantages by participating in the depreciation and, what we do as a cost segregation study and create bonus depreciation. So they get more upfront. And so with our sellers or our investors, they're receiving, financial gain benefits. And then there's one more group that I think often gets overlooked, because I say when you do these multifamily deals, there's two groups that get impacted. You have your stakeholder or your shareholders, and those are your investors. But then you have the stakeholders, and the stakeholders are the other people in the neighborhood. So if you go in and do curb appeal to a property and you bring a better tenant base in and you increase the value of that property, it increases the surrounding value. So your stakeholders are affected by the curb appeal, by the appearance of the building, by the improved operations of that property. Plus, so is the local business on the corner. Your gas station or your quick mart or grocery store. All those other businesses are affected as well. So I'm a firm believer that in what we do, we really impact the community, we impact the investor, we impact the sellers. And I'm all about creating, how do we create win-win structures, win-win situations that help everybody who's involved.
That's such an encouraging perspective, Mike. I was thinking as I was listening to you talk, it sounds like a guy who believes in win-win. And I think, there's a framework out there that business is dog eat dog. And I think it just doesn't have to be that way when you put yourself on the same side of the table as the other people who are a part of a transaction, try to problem solve together. I think things work out much better. Can you tell us a little bit about, I understand you have branded your coaching program, My Core Intentions. And I'd love to just hear from you about what does that mean, that phrase, and what's kind of your philosophy when you sit down to work with someone and help them, figure out a real estate problem or get into the industry? What is your paradigm for how you walk them through?
Yeah, that's a great question. Dan, it's about, your intentionality, right? You can have these goals and these dreams and things that you want to accomplish in life. But if you're not intentional about achieving them and not intentional about getting there, how will you ever take action? So, I said, when I first started my company and built out my company, I went through a bunch of iterations of a corporate name, and that's what that is. It's a corporate name, but I think it reflects my intentionality of wanting to help people and helping encourage people. Personally, myself in my own life, I've had a personal coach for 25 years. And my coaches have always kept me accountable and intentional to my actions. And I thought, what a better way of serving others by helping them be intentional about their actions. It'd be like if I came to you, Andrew, and I said, hey, what are you looking to accomplish this week? Great. So this is your goal. You want to raise, let's just say you're raising capital on a deal. You want to raise $100,000 this week. Well, how many people do you need to talk to, and how many investors do you need to reach out to, and how many soft commitments do you need to get this week in order to achieve your goal? Well, let's work towards that. And then what happens on the coaching call, and I always love this, is if I didn't do everything that I had set out as a goal or an intention for that week, and I had to come back to my coach and be intentional, boy, I never felt good about it. I always wanted to go back to my coach and say, hey, I got done what we set out to do, if not more than that. So I've always been, I think I'm a little rare bird in sometimes, because I tend to do more than what I set out to do, because I know that the results are in the numbers. And that's what I try to teach people by being intentional.
Mike, I love that I can just hear the intentionality of what you do in your explanation there. What would you say is the most common challenge or maybe most common misconception that you hear, and how do you help folks overcome that?
Oh, well, it depends on the individual for sure. And I think there's a couple of them. I teach a lot of strategy around creative little no money down financing strategies. And I think that people have a mindset that can't be done. And I've bought 4 unit to 400 unit apartment complexes and everything in between using creative financing structures. And, it's a mindset shift. And I think that we all have these thoughts or these stories that we've created in our own life and our own mind, that unless we change the story, we stay stuck. So it's like, hey, if you guys set a goal for your business for next year and you want to set out to achieve something different, what story do you need to change that's kept you in the place that you're in today? And I really try to encourage people to take a look at that and what do we need to change? I'll give you a great example. I have a guy I work with that, he's a builder developer, and he builds, he's always built small communities, 3 or 4 townhouses, 4 or 5 single family houses at a time. And he wanted to go to the next level. And but he was stuck in this pattern of, this is all I can do. I only have enough investors for this amount. I only have enough skilled tradesmen for this amount. And we started to lay out each one of those stories that he was telling himself. And, we just finally have gotten to a point where we got him to change those stories. And he's just about ready this year to come out of the ground with 171 unit development. So because I helped him change his story, right? So I think it happens in the mindset and then the activity that we take.
That's really encouraging, Mike. I love thinking of how we like to think of it as a limiting belief, and kind of naming that limiting belief and how that, frames what is possible for you. And unless you can change what you believe to be true, what's possible for you will never change. So that's really encouraging. Can you give us another couple examples of the kinds of people that you enjoy coaching? What kind of gets you really fired up, or what's a scenario where, someone, you're on a call with someone and you realize, oh man, I'm actually going to be able to help this person, give them a different story moving forward?
Yeah, boy, I have a couple, and it's a matter of, where do I start, right? So I have a guy that I started working with about 5 years ago. And he came to me and he said, hey man, I'm trying to get this 46 unit deal closed. He goes, I have not, I've done a couple of single family flips over the years. I come from corporate America, but I can't get it done. And so we tore the deal apart and we rebuilt the deal, restructured it. he wound up closing that 46 unit deal. He coached with me for about a year and a half, and we become good friends as well as business partners on a couple of deals that we're in together. But today, as a result of that relationship, he owns and operates 800 multifamily units. He's a passive investor in another 400 units. And he's building, or he owns two commercial projects that he's redeveloped and in the lease up process right now. And he's also in the process of building a 140 unit community in his market. So, that's kind of a super success story in a very short period of time, right? This is a guy that just took continual action every single day. And that's the one thing I really encourage people, especially when it comes to raising capital, right? Because we're a function of capital. If we don't have capital, we can't go buy a deal. And so the more resources to capital that we have, limited investors, private investors coming in and investing and benefiting from what we do, the more of that we have, the more real estate we can go buy and, help everybody involved. So I really work with people that you have to, from day one, when you say, hey, I want to be a multifamily investor, that's the message you need to communicate to everybody you come in contact with. And you need to build a book of business, and you need to develop a circle of influence where people are going to invest with you. So I have a great story about raising capital. So I have a woman who, she was a chiropractor and had a great practice, sold her practice, was married, husband passed away, left her died on Christmas Day, right? And, a number of years ago, and left her and the kids. And I don't want to say with nothing, but enough to, get by. And, so for a few years, she just raised her kids, got her kids out of the house, off to college, and said, hey, I want to go do something else, and wanted to get in real estate. And, we've been working on her raising money because of the number of people she knows and the circles she runs in. And now she's in the process of putting together $100,000 group. And that's, and what that equates to is 10 investors that will commit to investing $100,000 per year for the next 5 years. And they'll deploy that capital into other projects. So, it goes back to mindset. A lot of times things that happen to us in the past fuel where we're going to go, and how bad do we want to get there, and how is it going to help us get there. But I have a number of stories that are similar to that I've worked with people. And some of that's because of my own losses in my life. I had $100 million company back before 2008 that we crashed and burned when the markets changed, and, have rebuilt from there. So.
Yeah, Mike, well, it's been really interesting hearing your stories. I think you've got a world of experience, and you clearly think about intentionality in all that you do, and also impact. And I think some of those stories helping people with their businesses and raise capital and be successful in the ways you've done it are really exemplary. So yeah, thanks for being on the show. We're going to transition to the lightning round, where just kind of get to know you a little bit personally. First question for you is, what would you say is your biggest win?
My biggest win is rebuilding after a failure, and, changing my story, my mindset to say, hey, I'm not going to live under a rock and not be able to go achieve my dreams and my goals. And my biggest win is coming back and, writing 3 books and having a coaching program and, teaching how to syndicate multifamily deals, how to buy creative deals, managing and operating at a higher level today. And, just really helping other people succeed.
Yeah, that's great. From your own failures to helping others succeed is really a beautiful story. How about a favorite movie?
Favorite movie? God,
Yeah.
it's the holiday time, so I always have to go to Chevy Chase's A Christmas Vacation.
Classic. One of the best
I
movies
think
ever. How about
my
a favorite?
girlfriend and I are watching like 30 Christmas movies between now and Christmas. So
Yeah, that's how me and my wife are too. How about a favorite
favorite
food?
food? I love pasta. So and
Hmm,
garlic bread. It's my nemesis,
nice.
right?
All the carbs. What's a current growth edge? What's a way you're trying to grow personally or professionally?
Man, that's a really interesting question, and I'll create a little vulnerability right now. But I'm really trying to figure out who I want to be when I grow up. You know,
Hmm.
I kind of morphed into this place that I am right now. And I think part of that is market cycle, where we're at in the market cycle, and you know, it's a little bit difficult right now to be getting deals done and raising capital and that. And so, you know, I'm trying to, you know, start thinking through my goals for the new year and what path I want to go on. So I don't know that I have a real good, clear answer for that, other than the fact I'm kind of re-engineering myself right now.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Thank you for the vulnerability. And I think in some sense, we're all doing that all the
Yeah,
time. You're kind of always reinventing yourself. So I give you a lot of credit for
yeah.
thinking about that. What's some really good, like A+ content that you're taking in these days? Books, podcasts, anything?
So I really enjoy Joe Dispenza. And
Hmm.
if you're not familiar with him, but you know, his stuff's all about our mind, our belief, our manifestation. I really enjoy Joe Dispenza.
Joe Dispenza is a good one. How about how can folks connect with you if they have questions or want to learn more about
Yeah,
what
I
you're
love
doing?
connecting with people about anything. So, you know, if you want help, great. If you don't, that's okay. Let's connect. And you never know where the relationship can go. But if you follow me on social media, I'm everywhere: Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, LinkedIn, wherever you get your social media fill, you'll find me there. I'm always trying to bring great content. Or you can just reach out to me directly at mike@mikemorawski.com and you know, connect with me by email and we can jump on a call.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Mike, for being on the show. Thank you to our listeners for listening in. I know I got a lot out of this. It was interesting, Mike, just to hear you talk about, recovering from that failure that you mentioned right around the time of the great financial crisis, and how you've transitioned from that successfully to not only creating a successful career, but also helping others to create a successful career. So you're seeing the ripple effects of the impact that you're having in the world. So super grateful for having you on the show. Thanks to our listeners for listening in, and we'll catch you
Thanks,
all next
guys.
time. Thanks.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of the Real Returns Podcast. We hope that you learned something new about how you can invest to make a lasting impact on those around you. Please be sure to subscribe to our show wherever you listen to your podcasts, leave us a review, and share about us on social media. We hope you will join us for our next episode, where we will be continuing the conversation around impactful real estate investing.